Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to be started in just a few more minutes. Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're going to be started in just a few more minutes. If you haven't had a chance, please take a minute and go down to the chat box, and we would love to see where you are from and how you're doing today. So if you don't mind, while we're waiting for everybody to get here, we have a couple more minutes before we start. Just take a minute, introduce yourself, and let us know where you are from. Thanks so much. I see some of you adding into the chat box. Thanks so much. I'm looking forward to that. I'm just logging in myself. I see some people are here from Arkansas. So good to see everybody. Ohio, very close, and Michigan here. I'm wondering if you're getting the same storms we are. All right, I see from Georgia, all over. I've heard we're just as warm as you are there. I don't know if that's true or not. Wisconsin, right across Lake Michigan from us here. New York. North Carolina. Believe it or not, we have a lot of subscribers from North Carolina. New Mexico joining us. Hello, Jim. We talked earlier today in email. And I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces and email addresses here. So pretty exciting. California. Brian, I saw your name earlier today as well. So welcome, everybody. We are going to get started here in about 45 seconds. I know there's quite a few people coming in right now. So I want to make sure, can everybody hear me? Just go ahead and type in yes, or if I don't hear from anybody, I'll know the sound's not quite working. And you should see the picture of the cute gal in the glasses on the screen. And so I'll be real honest with you, this is my first webinar using Google Plus and Google Hangouts. And so I want to make sure everything's working for you. Wow, 62 degrees. It's been record highs here in Michigan. We're in the 90s and humid, like very humid. We very rarely put our air on, but it has definitely been on the last couple of days. So great. It's good to know that you guys can hear me. Thank you so much for replying. And I do want to let you know a couple of things about this. The delay runs about 1 to 3 minutes. So when I ask a question, sometimes I'm just pausing because it'll take a minute for you to hear me and then reply back in the chat box. And but I'm super excited everybody's here. We are going to get started. I'm super respectful of your time. I told you 1 hour, and my goal is to give you as much value as I can in that hour. Make sure that this is worth your time. I know giving up the last couple hours for some of you of summer is quite a sacrifice, and I appreciate it. Some of you go back to school Monday. I've been hearing you've been emailing me, and I can't believe Monday already. In Michigan, we don't go back to school till after Labor Day. So just to introduce myself, my name is Jeanette Stein, and I started this website about 4 years ago. I was on the initial committee in my district to start doing some implementation of the Common Core and understanding, and then doing some of the professional development in my district to help the other teachers. So I was put on kind of part-time teaching for part of a year to help people kind of get that going. And when I started this site, it was really meant for myself to just understand the standards really well and to organize them in a way that I could make sure that I was covering all the standards and getting through there. And it became this huge task, and what I found out is that it was really useful to other teachers. And this site has kind of grown. I've gone, you know, I started learning HTML, and then I learned Blogger, and now I've learned WordPress, and we're moving on and up in the world. I wanted to introduce you to a couple people that are awesome and helping me out tonight. And so we've got Phil Adams is going to be in the chat room. As always, there's always some technical difficulties, and I know he'll be in just a minute. And then we also, my husband is helping me with all the tech stuff. Like I said, this is my first time on Google Hangouts, and I wanted to make sure it ran real smooth for you. I didn't want to waste any of your time. So that you're going to see those two in the chat boxes and helping me out, and I'm super excited and grateful for that. So let's go ahead and get started. I sent you an email if you had registered before about lunchtime today, and I just asked you, do your students have access to textbooks? And I was overwhelmed by how many people do have textbooks but choose not to use them. And some of you have brand new textbooks, and whether you teach 8th grade and you find them to not be acceptable for your 8th graders, or your textbooks are 15 years old or somewhere in between, but they're just not aligned to the Common Core. Some of you have brand new textbooks that are aligned to the Common Core, but you're finding that they're not as useful as you thought they would be. And so that was very interesting to me. Do you have computers and internet access? What I found is the people who had the least amount of textbooks, a lot of you have the least amount of computers as well. And so that's going to bring another difficulty to organizing your classroom and making sure your students have all the resources they need. But we're definitely going to address that. Some of you, you told me, I am lucky enough to have iPads for every kid in my class, or my students are bringing in their own MacBooks, which to me in my district, that sounds heavenly, where they would actually know how to use it all and be able to do all that. So we're going to be addressing a lot of the questions that you guys have had about how to organize your classroom and how to make sure that students and you and parents feel comfortable and have the resources you need. I don't want to identify anybody with your responses today, but I had one say, it seems like if I do one thing, the parents are mad, and if I suggest another thing, the parents are mad, and they're always wanting us to do more. And while we're not going to fix everything in education in 1 hour, I'm really hoping that you get some good ideas that you can implement right away, whether you're starting school Monday or hopefully a month from Monday. So let's go ahead and get started. So textbooks, it seems like textbooks, there's always a debate. So whether you are for or against textbooks definitely have some good points to them, and they definitely have some negative points to them. And I used to be in, just for full disclosure, absolutely against textbooks because I saw some of my students frustrated with them. But as I started looking at it and researching it and really learning, I realized that textbooks aren't really the enemy. Textbooks have a lot of great quality. So I'm going to ask you, no matter where you are in that textbook debate, that we all agree that we came to get some strategies to use without textbooks, and that we're going to put our best foot forward, even if you're adamantly for textbooks. And let's start with a couple of things that are the pros. I think there's definitely some really important pros of textbooks. And if you don't mind, I would love to see you add in the chat box, what do you think are some of the pros to using textbooks? For me, just having that structure and organization. When you have a new teacher coming in, it is so nice to know you're covering everything you need to cover with a good textbook, and you've got the activities planned for you, you've got your answer keys, your teaching procedures, and a great reference. One of the biggest pros, I think, of textbooks is you've got a great reference for not only your students, but sometimes more importantly, your parents. And so the pros of textbooks are just so important to acknowledge when we're going and having to move away from textbooks. I've heard a lot of you say today in your responses to me, you told me, you know, we have textbooks, just a class set, and our administrator is really pushing us away from textbooks. And that's totally my life. That's exactly where we're at in my school. We have textbooks, they sit in the back of the room. It's a class set. They're too old. We don't have enough for all of the students. And so, and if they're being used, we kind of get, you know, looked down on. And so that's not awesome. So I just saw another Michigan person pop into our chat box. So welcome to Crystal as well. Yeah, I can't agree more with Joyce. She's saying there's practice problems, there's reference, there's structure, and the pacing is so important. Yeah, sure. Sherry says, I don't know if I mispronounced your name. I'm so sorry if I did. The examples, having those examples. We're going to talk about some ways that we can do that in our classrooms as well without those texts. So that is difficult, though. I do acknowledge that full-heartedly. So we've got some pros of no textbooks as well. And these are where we kind of get into some of the higher level thinking. So we've got sometimes the textbook can be a crutch, and it can give you those answers in the back. But the problem is students start to learn that there's always only one way to do a problem. This leads a lot of students to think that they're bad at math. It's very unfortunate, but they think if they don't do it your way or the textbook way, that they're not good problem solvers or they're not good at math. They're also led to believe that there's always an answer. And, you know, in real life problems, there's not always that clear-cut answer. And so it's really important that we take a look and see how we can figure out how to challenge kids to think outside of the box, to ask questions that don't have, you know, that number answer, to get them to think of different situations. And so there are some advantages of no textbook. The other one that I think is really big is it forces teachers to customize their lessons based on what the students need, not on what the text is saying. So it's kind of like the flip from the other coin, you know, the other side of the coin. While the pacing is great from a textbook, sometimes the pacing doesn't match what the kids need, but we have to get through it all at the end of the day. So, you know, there's that push and that give and take there as well. So I'm wondering, you know, what questions do we have about textbooks? Are there questions that you have? And if you do, I would really encourage you to put them into the text box as we go about textbooks, having them, not having them, any of the comments that I'm making. Please feel free at any time to put a question into the question box, and we will make sure to get to it at the next pause for a question. So the mathematical practices that are so important to our classrooms is we make sense of the problems and persevere. These are things that we already know. I don't want to read these to you, but being good problem solvers, showing perseverance, these are all things that we want for our own children, our students, and we need to take a look at what was great with the textbooks and what's great without the textbooks and kind of get the best of both worlds so that we can end up with that win-win situation. So we definitely want to get the win-win here and talk about some strategies for doing that. Okay. And I'm seeing Vicki says she uses the Holt McDougall, and yeah, we've been there as well. So they do have great online resources. All right, so what we have here is we don't want to miss any standards. And so we definitely need to make a plan. And so this was really hard for me to do. So when I started creating this website, when I started taking a look at it, what I did is I searched, and this was 4 years ago, so there wasn't much out there. I'm going to go over to the internet to show you where we're at. And I found from the Dana Center, this is associated with the University of Arizona. And what they had done is split up the Common Core standards for Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. If you're one of those folks that have emailed me about one of the other courses, this might be a good place to start. But what they've done is they've broken down all the units, and you'll see that these units match my units. I give credit to them all over my website. I think it's absolutely fabulous. But the problem was I really was having a hard time going into it and seeing, well, what really needs to be covered in Algebra 1 compared to what needs to be covered in Algebra 2 or Geometry. Was I doing too much, too little? And so what I did next was I looked at the Common Core State Standards for Appendix A. And when you look at Appendix A, you're able to see what is exactly covered in Algebra 1. Now, some of these things are so straightforward. You know, the quantities, reason quantitatively and use units to solve problems, that's only in Algebra 1. So that makes a lot of sense. We know exactly what we need to work with there. And if you can get your science department on board with that, it makes it easier for you. So if you're like us, we're working hard to get them on board as well. But as you scroll down, you'll see that other ones are split up in between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. And this gives you a really good way to break down what you need to cover compared to your Algebra 2 teachers need to cover. And this really helped me. I was trying to cover all of these. And so when it said polynomials here, and it says perform arithmetic operations on polynomials, I was doing all of it. I was trying to make it all work because I was worried about missing stuff. So we have resources, you know, available in our members area that align to these, and we've taken special notice of all of these things here. Okay. So as I scroll down, you're going to be able to see this. Now let's flip back to our slideshow real quick. There we go. And so I would really encourage you, if you're teaching this without a book, I know not all districts are going to use my plan, but whatever plan you use, take a look at those standards, and then you are going to be able to take a look through there and make sure that you've got them all placed somewhere. That Dana Center outline is a great place to start. And then there was one other thing I wanted to show you. I almost went by it too quickly. When you take a look at the website for the Algebra 1 teachers website, pardon me, you're going to be able to see what standards are in each unit. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the Common Core standards, and they're all listed here. This was really helpful because then when I went through and I figured out my weekly plan, which is not included in any of the other resources that are out there, when I went to my weekly plan, I could go to week 1 review, and I listed out exactly what standards are covered in that week. and I was able to find the very best lessons available online. And so whether you are going in the order I am or not, hopefully you can find resources on the right-hand side of every page are the units and then the weeks and what's being focused on each of those weeks. And I did title those myself to kind of help keep my eye on what the focus was. Okay, and those are all aligned to the standards as well. So I'm going to take a look and see what questions you might have at this time. And there we are. And so I'm taking a look at your comments. So it looks like we're looking for, it's hard to find resources outside the textbook. I couldn't agree more, Virginia. So what I've started doing is in the live binders on, let's go through this real quick. So if I go into, there we go, I lost my mouse for a second. So if I go into Algebra 1, and I go back to my Unit 1, sorry about the scrolling there for a minute. And in each unit, you are going to be able to find lesson ideas that are aligned to the Common Core. And these are called live binders. And you'll see that I have these tabs at the top. And with each tab, we've got our Unit 1 review. And all of these lessons would be great and match for the standards that are covered in week 1. And you're seeing that we have these for each week going forward. Within our members area, we are also creating and uploading currently this week as fast as we can the materials that we've created, problems that we've collected, formatted, and made ready for you to use, all within our members area for you today. And we do have a webinar discount going on today, so 25% off today only. And so I'm pretty excited about that as well. So if we go back to our PowerPoint, let's talk about organizing, how we're going to organize our unit. This is where I think we get into the nitty-gritty and what we need to take a look at. So as I'm going through the organization of organizing my class, not only for me, which is great, but more for my students and for the parents so that they know exactly what's going on all the time. This organization and then this chart right here tells me all the skills. This isn't the higher level thinking, and I purposely put the mathematical practices before this list. We all understand those mathematical practices are the most important thing, but this list tells me in what context I can teach it. So creating an equation from a situation might be a great way for them to be able to look for information or select the right tool depending on what I give them. And so when you signed up for the email list, you were able to get a copy of the bonus PDF, and hopefully you've got that printed off, and if not, we can put a link in there to help you out. But as you scroll through, you can see all the little skills that you're going to need to do. Now, if you want to take this one, when we send it to you, if you need a Word document of this, we're happy to send that to you. And maybe I'll just do that at the end for everybody attending the webinar. We can put this in Word so that you could reorder this to fit what you have in your school district. But what we did is we looked at all the standards, and then we looked at what skill could we teach this in context with. And so identifying a function. Of course, we know that they need to know every input, maps to only one output. We know the vertical line test, and so we can give them those different tools and use those mathematical practices in here. But having this list of skills, and then what I have done is reformatted this as well. So Students don't need to know these numbers and what unit and what standard. What they need to know is, have I achieved it? So when you take a look at have I achieved it, we have our weekly assessments that align to each one of those skills and give kids an opportunity to meet those skills. And so this has been a great way to do this. So I wanted to take a stop here, and I see some questions popping up, and I want to make sure that I'm not going on. Okay, so I see a great point by Patricia. I struggle with meeting everyone's individual needs, finding enough materials, and finding time to sleep. Now, Patricia, I believe you sent me an email earlier today, and I'm having a hard time remembering off the top of my head if you have technology or not, or if your students have technology at home. Finding enough materials, one thing that I do is a lot of the performance tasks that I provide in our members area have different levels, because my students were all different levels. I had students who were just a year in the country, and so they could not read. They were good math students, but they couldn't read the English materials. And I also had special ed students who could read the materials, but they really struggled in math. And so I did some different accommodations, and I do hand out those different options with the PDFs or the Word documents that you get. The other thing you're going to notice in our members area is I give everything as a Word document and a PDF. So PDFs to make it easy to print, because nothing worse than downloading. And I know I have old computers in my school, so it'll mess up the formatting sometimes. But we give it to you in Word so you can adjust it. You can copy and paste it and adjust it for your students at whatever level they're at. And so, Crystal, I would hope that that would help meet as well some of your mixed grade levels. That sounds like a lot of work. We had a lot of teachers email me back saying that they either dealt with a residential classroom, that because of circumstances in their schools, things were extremely restricted, which would make me believe that that's a different, same kind of situation there. And then as well, that they deal with a lot of at-risk students. And so just as a side note, in the members area, we do have a course called How to Teach Algebra 1 to, underprepared in at-risk students. And that might be very helpful in building some of that rapport and building those kids up so that they will try in your class. And so that definitely is very important. Some of the classroom structures, when you don't have a textbook, students and parents can feel really overwhelmed with what's going on in your classroom. And so what I would encourage you to do is, I always had today's agenda on the board, and then I also had a weekly agenda on the board. With the textbook, students are trained, parents are trained, that they can look through that, and they can look through the textbook. They know exactly what's in that chapter. They know what the goals are. And so I kind of did my own version of that right on the whiteboard. This is not a picture of my class, although I wish it was. I did find this one online, and I loved it because they've got today's agenda right next to the weekly agenda, and having a place to write that down. Now, I would also encourage your students to find some sort of resource guide. This is the one thing that is an absolutely must-have for your, this is a must-have for your students, whether it's a 3-ring binder, whether it's the trendy composition book with the interactive notebooks, whatever you want to call it. You can call it a resource guide, but having some sort of place for your students to keep, like somebody said, the bonuses of a textbook is all the examples. Have a place where students can't lose the papers, where every handout goes. They're either glued in, stapled in, or 3-ring bindered in. Whatever works for your class and your teaching style and your students. I've talked to some teachers here who have to send some things home. I have different teachers who, everything has to stay in the classroom. And so I was learning a lot about the legislature in California, where the books have to stay at home. So it sounds like there's a lot there. the one thing I would strongly recommend is you have some sort of resource guide where parents and students can look for the examples you provided in class. For my students, what I did do is I had a lot of handouts where I might put some examples in there for them and have them write the other ones. I had a lot of at-risk students and a lot of ELL English learners, and so to copy everything off the board was really slow, and we didn't have enough time for that and the practice. So I would give them a copy, we'd 3-hole punch it, but I also had them, there was room for them to practice as well. But having a resource guide where they can organize it, and I will send this as well in case you have not had a chance to get our template for some of the interactive notebooks. But having that table of contents makes parents, I've noticed, I didn't do this the first year and I did this the second year, and it was amazing how much the parents took the notebooks so much more seriously when they could look up a certain topic in a certain place. So I'm hoping that this would help. Sandra, I'm seeing that you used them as well this year, and they truly loved them. Doing my research on this, I was amazed at the research that shows the brain, how the brain incorporates the materials when they're able to put it into the notebook themselves. So what they did is, sorry, I'm reading your comments as I'm trying to talk. So what they found out is that if people used the interactive notebooks and students had to organize the information themselves, the brain can only take in so much new information a day, an hour, a minute. And they took in the same amount of information from the lecture, from the information being provided. But what they found out is that people that had to write it down into some sort of resource guide, interactive notebook, they retained more of the important information. Because they had to organize it, they had to think through what was important and what was not important. And students retained a substantial amount more of the important information that they needed to be successful, which I thought was just right there is evidence enough to have the kids take their own notebooks. So I was just taking a look while I was working through this. Where can we find out more about the interactive notebook and resource guides? I have started to blog on that and include that. What I'm showing you right now on the screen with some of the different templates that can be used to organize the information, this is available on my website, and because you registered for the webinar, I'll make sure that you get this PDF. This one I really like. The dotted lines are your fold and the solid lines are your cut lines, and then the student glues this bottom part on and they flip these over. So I've seen this used, I use this for order of operations during week 1, and I also use it to help students remember and organize the steps and the ability to organize and go step by step. Students right now are so used to instant gratification that they don't like to do things step by step, and this really helped them to organize it. And so I will make sure that you get this PDF sent to you after the webinar when the replay is available. So I'll make sure you get all of that. So this resource, find some sort of resource guide. So depending on your school district, depending on how you are going to work with that, we will make sure that you are all set with that. So questions, let's see what questions if we have any questions going right now. Okay, so I just heard about the live binders. I'm a member, but when I click on the live binders, I do not have the same page you showed. The page shows no results found. Virginia, I will take a look at that. Phil was nice enough to kind of point that out, and so I will make sure that I take a look at that, and maybe you and I can touch base after and make sure that you have the links for that. I will make sure to send a link to the live binders as well after the webinar so that you guys have all of those resources. Where can we find out more about the interactive notebooks and resource guide? I think I answered that one already just to make sure. I will send a link to that PDF and then also to the blog post where I cover some information about that. And then I do have some other resources that can be used for that. The organization questions, we had like 3 right back to back, great questions. I teach in a block, 90-day courses. Can I double up on your days? Joyce, I think that is a great option, doubling up on the days. That also allows for a lot of these interactive lessons that you're going to find on the site to be done really more in depth. So maybe you won't need, you know, both Tuesdays and Wednesdays lesson, but when it's being broke up, that's, you know, when it's being broke up, you kind of need to hit 2 different lessons to help the kids really understand it, where sometimes it might be more beneficial to go more in depth and then give more specific questions based upon just that one lesson. So that's a great question. And Joyce, maybe you and I could talk more specifically about which lessons might be good to maybe skip and which ones to go more in depth on, because that would be what an awesome, I don't know, 90-day courses is really tight, but to have the longer classes might be really awesome. So you've mixed, and then the other one, I think we touched on it a little bit. I have many IEPs. What accommodations do you have for this? And I'm trying to remember who put this up, but I think you said you have limited website things. I would take a look at MobyMax. MobyMax is a paid program that's online, but if you use Edmodo as a structure for your classroom, what that is kind of like an online safe Facebook where kids can only get into your class if they have your code. Keeps them quite safe. If you use Edmodo, you will be able to get into MobyMax for free. The reason why I'm mentioning that is I do teach a lot of at-risk students, and MobyMax will test them, give you a grade level, and then actually write the IEPs for you and tell you when the student has met that IEP. So I use that to help with some of the pre-algebra skills, and then I would do the activities and do the activities as a whole group, and then I would use MobyMax for that more specific remediation. And that my students grew in their pre-algebra skills, even though I was teaching Algebra 1, in their pre-algebra skills, it was just amazing using that program. So I've had a tremendous amount of success with that program and helping my students understand fractions and mixed numbers, and along with what's a function and things they should have learned in earlier grades that they didn't for whatever reason, and I needed to get them caught up. And so that was a great program, and I'll send a link to Edmodo and then MobyMax so you can take a closer look at that as well. And then Kathy is asking a great question. What is the absolute best Algebra 1 Common Core textbook you'd recommend? You know, Kathy, because of my experience is limited with those textbooks, and I haven't had a chance to teach out of them, I'm very reluctant to very reluctant to recommend anything. I've heard good and bad about Core Plus, and I've heard good and bad about the Pearson, but I really haven't been in it to know what's the best one for you there. If anybody has recommendations or they are using a Common Core textbook that you would recommend, please go ahead and do that right in the comments. It would be great if we could share all together as well. And then I'm also seeing another question came through. I teach bilingual students. Are there any resources in Spanish? And I do not speak Spanish, so I have not created the Spanish resources, but I will be taking a look. There are a lot of the online programs that I'm not sure if you have access. I know a lot of people who replied to the email do not have access to the internet, or very limited, but I do know that there are some programs that will translate for you. So there's one called Actively Learn. Actively Learn will translate into like 8 different languages, and I've used that in my classroom because we do have so many EL students. And then I will have to do some research on that. That is an excellent, excellent question. So thank you so much for asking that. All right, lots of good questions here. I'm excited for how involved everybody is. Thank you so much. If you are, you know, interested in having a community to work with, we would love to have you in the Algebra 1 Teachers Members area. You know, we are always taking a look at different ideas, different assessments and activities and online courses, and the organization materials ready for you. And so, you know, if you're looking for a community, if you're looking for all the assessments for every unit, final exam examples, pre-tests, the weekly assessments that we do that help you to keep your students on track when you don't have a textbook, we have those. They are being created or being uploaded right now. We have activities and performance tasks to help you to assess not only those skills, but also, you know, the mathematical practices. And then we're also offering online courses that are included with your members area. So the first one is starting right now on Monday for how to teach underprepared students Common Core math, you know, which is pretty hard and rigorous. And so there's some great strategies in there. And then we also have our organizational materials. And if you're interested in joining us in there, we do have a webinar special right now. And you use the webinar discount code, webinar25, it gets you 25% off any of our packages today. And so we would love to see you there. Now I'm seeing some other things pop up on the comments as well. Crystal, I like college prep math. I have heard good things about college prep math. Thank you so much. I hope that would help you, Kathy, understand about that. So I wanted to share a couple other resources with you. And so let's go back on to the website here. I don't know if it's, I had to switch computers last minute to get, because my other one was so slow that I didn't want it to go too slow. And now to make up for it, I've talked quite quickly and we've gotten done quite quick. It might be the 45 minutes that I was originally planning. But I did want to show you the members login area so that you could get an idea of how this works. You're going to see my my email address that I've had since college. There was somebody else who was Purple Penguin, and I just felt an instant connection with them for sure. I was super excited. I remember telling my husband about it right away. And so when you log into the members area, the great thing is you're going to be able to go down to the unit resources. And when you click on the unit resources, you will be able to see everything that we have available. So when we click on the Unit 1 resources, and we are still adding to this, and we click that master list, you're able to see all the bell ringers, all the assessments, all the activities, presentations, worksheets, and different, the standards list as well. One thing that our members area is we know that you have different schedules and different students, and to give you a script, I just don't think that goes well for students. And so we do stay away from that. But you'll notice that all of our documents are given in Word and PDF. So a lot of you work with a lot of different levels of students, and so we wanted to give you the Word documents so that you can adjust those if you need them to be more challenging or to be less challenging. And Absolutely, they're on there. And then the nice part is our members area set as a forum. So if you go in ahead and adjust any of these, we do encourage you to share it back so that everybody gets a chance to try one more way or see it with different numbers and everything. So here we go. So go ahead and use that webinar 25 discount code if that's something you're interested in. I really hope that you found some of these things helpful to you today. I would love to know, just real quick to wrap it up, what were some of the things that you found most helpful today? So meaningful math. I'm not sure how to say your name the way it's typed in there, but I have heard great things about meaningful math as well. So I totally forgot. I've totally forgot about that one. And then Brian Davis said, what is the course to teach underprepared students? Within the membership, if we go back to forums and I scroll down, how to teach underprepared students. What this is a 30-day boot camp. I call it a boot camp because a course sounds like a lot of work. And when you go to the 30-day boot camp, what you can do is, this is included, is we give you 30 challenges. I've got the first week up. And then we also have 12 videos to help you out. And when you go to the 30 challenges, what you can do is subscribe to like a little email list, and it'll send each one of them to you in a email. And these will help you to connect with those students, try different strategies, learn how to layer your lessons. So the brain research shows that you can only learn so many things at a time. And so each one of these 30 challenges will be delivered 5 days a week for 6 weeks. And then they're just short and give you something to think about, a way to connect with your at-risk students, a way to connect, a new strategy to try that really helps. And I can't think of a better way to start off the school year with that. And with so many people going back to school, the first round will start on Monday. So these are already all loaded up for you and ready for you to get started. So if you wanted to get those emails and be told when everything's up and keep you on pace, you can get those challenges emailed daily. Just click this link here. Otherwise, I don't want to spam anybody that doesn't want to start Monday, and so I ask that you do that. And then we just go through and you'll be able to access all the videos, do comments, and then I do offer certificates of completion for all of the courses. And then we will have new courses every other month. The next one comes out in September. And so those will be available as well in your members area. And that's all included in that yearly or monthly cost. Okay, so that's all there for you. So I'm taking a look and making sure I haven't missed any of your other questions. Wow, Brian, I had a year like that with 4 different preps as well. Oh, the program I mentioned before Edmodo was called MobiMax. I'll put that in here, right? And I've added it in there. If you go into Edmodo and you look at the apps there, MobiMax is one of them, and just for subscribing to Edmodo and putting your class in there, they give you that program free. I think if you're going to pay for it, it's between $50 and $150 per year, depending on how many students you teach. So knowing that little trick of going through Edmodo to get it free is a nice little teacher perk there, for sure. Let me double check my document here. I do want to get you out of here on time. I want to make sure that we have answered all of you know, I want to make sure I've got all your answers. It sounds like we had at least 13 states represented, all the way from California to New York. I'm curious if there's anybody outside of the states listening. I know I got a new subscriber today from South Africa. I was pretty excited about that just because I have a place in my heart for Africa. So we had up to 73 people in the chat today. I know it kicks you out if you don't comment for a minute. I kept having to go back in if you heard me stuttering. So, and then I just saw a new question come up as well. Is the webinar saved somewhere? I'm visiting my daughter in Georgia. Congratulations. I hope you're enjoying your time. And I have problems getting on here. They came in late. I will be sending out a recording of this webinar probably tomorrow morning, because I want to make sure that it's recorded correctly and that you get the right thing, but possibly this evening. And it will include all of the recording. It will be on a YouTube link, so it should be accessible from most schools. I know some schools still block YouTube, and I'll see what I can do about downloading that in an MP4 Pro. We'll see if I can get that to work. And then the other question I'm seeing just popped up here is how to teach underprepared students is a forum. Where's the online class that starts Monday? That is within the forum. So how I've set it up is how to teach underprepared students. That course is available with your membership, and it's right within the forum. And that does, the first round will be starting on Monday. But then we will start every Monday. So if your school doesn't start in Michigan, I feel very fortunate right now. But when I'm still in school in the middle of June, I'm not so fortunate. But we don't go back till September 8th this year. So if that's when you go back, you're more than welcome to start it that week as well. So once you're a member, you get full control over when to start it. You'll get full access to that course as soon as you become a member. Do you think your program will work for 8th graders who are advanced? I have a weak teacher in middle school, and the teachers are coming to high school with very weak skills. I would think for 8th graders who are advanced, the program and the problems will really teach them how to be good thinkers. I really searched the internet for lessons that cause and help students become problem solvers and to become higher level thinkers. And so if they are advanced, I would think that yes, this would really help them out and hold them accountable. If you have a weak middle school teacher and they are doing those weekly assessments and holding those 8th graders accountable, and those 8th graders have that list of skills that they're going to be learning, as they go through, those 8th graders can also know, and those parents can hold them accountable, even with that weaker teacher, for knowing those skills. And that is a really powerful way for students to hold themselves accountable, but also for a teacher to see, wow, my students really, none of them got this one skill. They'll know exactly what they need to work on and which lessons they need to work harder at. So I really think that it could help out a lot. Those weekly assessments are really powerful for students, parents, and you to know exactly how to direct your teaching. Well, thank you. I don't want to keep you too long. I've been having just a great time for my first webinar. You guys have been a fabulous audience. Thank you so very, very much. I am overwhelmed with the outpouring, and thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to see so many of your familiar faces and names. Thank you so much. Good night. Oh, and as always, you can always email me with any questions. So please let me know if you have any issues, and I will send out that replay soon. Thanks so much.